to, I guess first, like really promote my students, number one, and the program I'm at, the school I'm at, so you see some of that. And I also want to show you, I think what Julian put in there, I've actually, what my role was today. It's in here, but it's about like the future of civilization and everything. So I think we'll touch on some themes in that area. Thanks, Julian, for setting me up. No, I think there's some really important things being built right now that people don't see and can't see. They're invisible. It's sort of the Internet of Things, both on the ground and in space. And in my current role, I'm building that Internet of Transportation with cities, and it's a mess. And so I find it really concerning, and for reasons hopefully you'll see in work. And just to start a conversation with you, a good conversation. So that's kind of those are my goals tonight, and hopefully meet some interesting people here. So without further ado, I'll get going. So a little bit about our program at the school. GTSD stands for Graduate Transportation Systems and Design. This is the graduate transportation program at ArtCenter College of Design. The undergraduate program has been known for 70 years as like 90% of all cars were designed by our graduates. Yeah. It's just like the mafia of car design. It's ArtCenter. The graduate program doesn't do car styling. We do everything else, which is huge, right? It's air, space, land, transportation, buses, trains. There's so much more, right, that we need to do than just design cars. So it's a massive scope in the graduate program. Tonight I'm going to focus a little more on space because I think it's really fascinating and interesting, and some ground transportation stuff, as you'll see. 6 terms is great because the students have a long time to kind of find their own path into the future. Like I said, there's a very broad scope, and it's daunting for some of the students. It's really hard to say, okay, here's where I'm going to go. And it takes a while to learn enough about transportation to know where you're going to go. I am trying to, right now, remodel the program so it's a little more accessible. 6 terms is quite a bit of time and money for people. So we're going to try and make it a little more accessible moving forward. I want to introduce a couple of students. She's a graduate, Dalal Esheikh. This is just a snapshot from her website, some of the projects she's done. Some of these I did with her. For example, we did a Waymo project, a Waymo sponsored project. The whole team of students worked on it for a term, and I was the teacher. She's done work for Audi, that cockpit on the far left. But on the far upper right is this sort of space project. That was her thesis. And she framed some really important problems here, as you can see. But a lot of people, we romanticize space because we watch a lot of movies. We think being in space is really cool and fun. But space is really terrifying and bad for you, and psychologically and socially isolated. It's really hazardous. And so these are just some of the problems she discovered. She wrote herself a design brief. This is what we do. So our program allows the students really open topics so they can actually create their own design brief. They don't have to be told what to do. They find their own way in very fuzzy situations. That's part of what makes the graduate program versus an undergraduate program. Ajay Menon, this is his project for Uber. We do sponsor projects at the school, so Uber Elevate came and said, we're going to do flying vehicles with people help us out. So this is a project. You can look at his website online, but he was at Uber Elevate Summit in 2018 to present this in Dubai. So this was a team project. But they designed all this stuff, and these flying vehicles, and made videos, and you can see it on his website. I have a few pictures here from his thesis, which was space-related as well, not the Uber Elevate thing, but he chose a mission to Mars, and the fact that you're in a small space with people for so long that it gets really difficult psychologically and socially. That little quote on the left there is from Cosmonaut. And in fact, there have been like attempted murders in space programs because people just lose it. So his brief to himself was how do you stay connected, how do you stay sane, it's important to understand that the students have to do a lot of secondary research. They get to scan what's the best thinking in the world around social context, for example. And so I've been working on that a long time, and as a mentor in this project, I've recommended we look at proxemics, which is really the science of social safety zones. And there's 4, and they're universal, and they were developed by the scientists Edward T. Hall in the 1960s, and they're considered pretty universal. But he used that to create an algorithm on the right, the blue dot. And I don't go show you every detail because some of this is proprietary for him. But he created an algorithm and mapped like sort of healing and socially positive experiences to all those circles, and then an app that would actually advise the astronauts how to better get along and how to change their behaviors during the day so they would stay sane and stay more healthy and connected. This is just snapshots from his project. He presented this at another big conference. That's Ajay, actually standing in front of the big screen with the scarf on. He built an entire world on the ground and in space. Incredible student. His work is on the wall out there. You'll see as you come in. So those are just a couple of snapshots of students' work. Our students have gone to a lot of industries, but they're going to sort of car companies in the advanced innovation spaces where they're doing autonomous vehicles. There's a lot more questions than answers. If you're designing or styling a car, there's a lot of answers there. The questions are more about, maybe 10% of the project is unknowns. They're working in sort of the advanced team for maybe 90% of it's unknown. What's a mobility service look like, and how can we make money as a car company? We've never done this before, right? This is more the same. They're getting leadership roles. So I'm promoting the program here, just to be very clear. Huge success for our graduates. They're really getting great roles in the world and shaping the future. We've got 4 Mercedes-Benz, 4 GM's autonomous and automated future mobility team, and others. The Metro has an office of strategic innovation. We have 2 people there right now. It's pretty incredible. So I want to get to what Julian asked me to talk about, which is emerging trends in civic technology, infrastructure, to reshape transportation, our cities, and global civilization. So it's actually true. I made fun of it, but there's a lot at stake in what's going on and the way technology has been. The world of IoT has been applied to transportation. Is being applied to transportation. I'm part of that. My startup is doing that right now with cities, and I want to get into that a little bit tonight. The three main themes I want to talk about. One is fragmentation of the macro architecture of IoT. In the middle is like a fragmentation of metrics. Like, how do you know you're delivering, your algorithm that's running your transportation? It's just like air traffic control for ground transportation. That's what's coming. Run by AIs, right? How do you know it's actually delivering equity, safety, and resilience? These are very common metrics that most cities would say, yeah, we'll sign up for that. How do you know if those are really, if you're really hitting those metrics? And then local intelligence at a micro level. We'll get into that later. But the first little chapter I'm going to go through is this top one. And I think what my big questions are is like, will we export all these ground-based IoT dysfunctions, which I'm about to go through with you, into space? Like, if Elon Musk is building the future IoT of space, do other countries have to learn to comply with that? Does he own it? Is it patented? Is he the only one who can run space? Like, I'm not a space architect at all in terms of IoT. I don't know, just to be very clear. So these are questions on my mind. But if that happens, I think that's not good, all right? And I think we'll see why when you go through what's happening on the ground as a case study. Can we get civil designers integrated from day one with cross-functional teams? Civil designer is kind of a term that I'm promoting right now. You've heard of civil engineers, right? And they go in and they make seawalls and dams and things that protect cities from nature and things like that, right? Well, I think those folks are amazing, but they don't necessarily do sort of society or human-centered design. And I think the whole IoT space needs that. And I'm calling those civil designers. What if we don't bring that to bear? This is a slide just to get into really the mess of the IoT, Internet of Things for transportation. This is a slide from Eric Ramont. He's at the Federal Department of Transportation right now. I met with him a couple times the last month, both within my startup and a larger public event. He presented these slides 2 weeks ago at ITSA America, and he's from the Haas group, which I get into, but basically IoT is a privatized architecture in the United States. So private companies have stood it up, not the government. And so essentially the companies who are doing this can kind of just do what they want. and the government doesn't necessarily know how to control them or manage them. And so cities have essentially a fragmented and very latent situational awareness. So this is an example from, we had a great guest lecture from Dr. Micah Ensley. This is one of her slides, if you remember that lecture. She's up in the upper right. She was a guest lecturer in our class. And she's like a rock star in situation awareness and designing these displays that you see for space command centers. Like that's her, situational awareness is in control is kind of her space. And so even for energy transmission systems, and this is a case study from up in the Northeast, there's a massive energy blackout. And she had to sort of understand what happened. And one of the things is all those screens in those operating centers, every one of those is like a soda straw looking at something, and then you have to actually put it all together in your head as a team or as an individual. I call that fragmented situational awareness. And cities have that because if you go down to any major corridor in Pasadena or in LA, the city paid a contractor to sort of put in technology to make that corridor work 20 years ago. And then 22 years ago, the street over was done by another contractor with different technology. And they had to purchase and buy into those technologies. And they're kind of locked into these things for decades. And so I call that fragmentation. There is no unified architecture that all the cities are kind of rolling out. It doesn't work that way in the United States. We're a free market. And cities don't necessarily stand up and say, no, we're doing this all in a single architecture so it all makes sense. They don't do that. So when they want to know what's happening on the ground in transportation, they really don't know. They have all these displays, but they have to look at them all. It takes a month for a planning team to make sense of it and decide what to do about it. Which to me, if this is a space command center, the astronauts are dead at that point, okay? Or you've just got traffic jams all over the city, and you really don't know why, and you can't do anything about it in any timely manner. Another complicating factor is government don't pay enough to attract top AI talent. I mean, if you just look at the pay scales in government jobs, and I know the people who actually are in charge of deciding who to give these hundreds of millions of dollars to for the sort of Green New Deal and all these projects that are happening, those folks aren't necessarily that savvy enough about the tech to know which company to give the money to, okay? This is kind of like a known thing in the government agencies at a federal level. And so this is just a little map of a technology stack. From left to right, it's sort of sensing, in the middle is processing, and then controls and all the applications. And my company is actually all the red circles, or my company's building those things right now, okay, with partners. And so I'm deep into this stuff, and it's every city has a very different set of partners for all these little pieces. And they don't really know who has the best technology. And I was at TRB, Transportation Research Board, which is an annual event in the United States in Washington, D.C. It's the Department of Transportation's big sort of powwow every year. And they pick all the best scientific papers, and they've got 20 to 30 panels that decide what the agenda is going to be for transportation for the next 5 years. And you can go to them. And one of the quotes, this is a quote, but I don't know who said it, so I'm not going to actually put quotes around it, but they said, working with AI is the biggest challenge in transportation governance and management right now. So, if you're a traffic engineer and you're or a Department of Transportation head, and someone's trying to sell you a cloud-based traffic management software, it says, look, I can make traffic way better. AI can manage all this complexity for you. You just pay us, a certain number of dollars a year. Software as a service, everyone is in that business. I'm in that business as a startup. So they're paying consultants to actually train government agencies, and traffic engineers to understand what AI is, how to use it, what it can do, what it can't do. Just a telltale. And what's not happening is what I'll call cooperative AI. And this is based on some work I did when I was at BMW doing advanced innovation, where you have sort of manual on the left and fully automatic on the right as an automation spectrum. But people aren't talking about the middle ground enough, in my view, which I'll call cooperative automation, okay? Because if you really think it through, and you don't have to be a scientist to understand it, if the red box is the cloud-based intelligence, you can't just go from manual to automated things that happen really, that do good. There's no such thing as artificial intelligence in my view. You have to actually tell it what you want for a while, and then it learns a little bit about that. And maybe it'll start suggesting things that are good suggestions once it learns what you really want in different situations. Eventually, it might get good at just completely automatically giving you what you want, whatever the system or context is. My view is we should never lose this. And I think Dr. Ensley would agree. If you just go straight here, people have no understanding of the situation the system is in, how it's performing, and then when it needs you, you have no way to actually know what to do. So this keeps the human in the loop, this sort of middle ground, okay? And so I'm really a proponent of this sort of cooperative approach to automation. And in fact, my company, Xtelligent, is a cooperative intelligent transportation system company. We're specifically about cooperation. So we work with cities to make what they want. We don't just tell them what to do and what they need. A little bit about the sort of civil design thing. I was at a company down the street called Idea Lab. If anyone knows about Idea Lab, it's an incubator here in Pasadena. I think they're maybe the original incubator. You worked there, right? Yeah.
First one in the tech industry.
Exactly, there, thank you. So I was honored to be invited to work at a company called AI Pod, which is sort of a small, connected, autonomous vehicle, 1.5 passengers. Never existed before, right? And it would take you from your home to a main transit hub. And so it was really public transit friendly. It wasn't competing for ridership. So we thought we had a good idea. But like a pod is something that no one's ever done before. It's autonomous. It'd be 10 years before investors got their money back. And so I said, let's pivot. Let's make the software that orchestrates all that. Software is much faster and easier to build than a vehicle. It's to pass safety crash tests. So this felt like a quicker way to make money. And I call it civil mobility because at the time Bird was just throwing like scooters in the street and it just like, we call it landfill capitalism, you know, and it was just terrible. And you know, there's, was it Waymo, one of their vehicles killed somebody or something? It was just like, really great, we need to civilize this whole space, right? We can't take this kind of pirate approach to cities and you know, cities are like the heart of civilization, and we're just letting pirates control the transportation system. So it's just like, this is crazy. So we called it civil mobility, and it was software. And these are some of the shots. So we were doing this kind of thing, and we had this epiphany. It was like, and it was actually, I hired like 4 different students from ArtCenter as interns, and they came up with this. And they're like, you know, if all these different players are out there on the commons, like, who's orchestrating all this? You know, how do you know they're going to follow the rules, right? And that led to the company that I'm at now. And so I pivoted out of there. Two companies came out of it. One did a little pod in London, and then I went into Xtelligent, which is a different company. This is just a screen capture. It doesn't really say much. There's a lot at stake with traffic signals. You know, they're basically analog timers. 98% of them around the United States, and so they cause a lot of problems. They're like the dumbest robots ever, and they control how we get around. So we just have like a software that it's an AI-powered algorithm. An algorithm basically controls the network for various purposes. These are some of the metrics that cities ask us to work towards: greenhouse gas reductions, network performance, resilience and reliability. Again, resilience here is really purely like a technical definition, okay? One of my students just did her thesis on what is resilience. And so she went into communities in LA, and resilience isn't at all a technical thing to them. It has nothing to do with technical definitions of resilience or recovery, as most the engineering or mechanistic terms are. It's really about social power as a community. That's their interpretation of resilience. It's fascinating. So that was kind of like the macro architecture, this whole Internet of Things that's orchestrating movement on the ground. And it's fragmented because we basically have a free market economy, and cities don't have the money or the ability to hire, I think, top quality people to create those things or manage those things. So I want to get into the metrics a little more. This is a snapshot of some of the people that my company's working with around the United States. it's a team sport because basically you're controlling all the different modes, buses, cars, micromobility, using software to say, okay, at this intersection at this time, this person's going to get priority versus that person, and we're going to change the timing accordingly. So yeah, these people let us control their traffic signal network. So you learn quickly that you have to actually work across technologies and silos and cultures in this space. This is another example of regional partnerships that's coming up. This is just a little card that's handed out at TRB by the folks at UCLA. So they just got $7.2 million to start a Center of Excellence on New Mobility and Automated Vehicles at UCLA, which is pretty fascinating. But, you know, you've got to have a lot of partners, people who measure your success, and you need technology partners, et cetera, et cetera. So that's another theme here, coordinated. So this is just an image from the UN Climate Change High-Level Commission 2023. They're talking about the future of energy, and if we're going to have a positive reconfiguration of our energy system for sustainability, notice the word coordinated is in here 5 times. You know, and so that's another theme that keeps coming up. There has to be coordination across multiple teams. And then this is a slide just looking at future casting. I grabbed this from Julian actually. So this matrix says there's sort of four scenarios in the future for civilization to survive. You know, economically, ecologically, and environmentally. So the environmental sustainability and social economic equity are this way. And so low is here, high for both is here, and ideally, you know, we kind of want to be here, I think. And I think I put this like crazy line thinking that's sort of the uncoordinated path forward. That's like, you know, there's going to be wars, there's going to be lots of divide and conquer. No one's going to be working together really in a coordinated way to get to this box very fast. So it's going to take to 2055 before we really see this is starting to really happen. That's my prediction. And I think a cooperative approach says we can get there faster. Okay? So this is one of my visions and my points of view in everything I do. And so this is actually part of my sort of vision for my program. Moving forward, I think we can educate cooperative leaders, okay? We can work across silos, have vision, work to values, not just technologies, and get there faster. And then when you talk to folks at DOTs and stuff, they're like, oh, we get the theory, and you know, they can say, yeah, we love all this, Richard. Yeah, great, cool. But the government folks are telling us we have no understanding of how to measure these things, other than quantitative metrics. And as you know, people are social. We make decisions because we're part of a family and we're part of a company. There's a pecking order, and we're political animals, and we're emotional. Right? No one makes decisions based really on pure logic. You're not human if you do, typically. So they don't know how to model people in this way, or measure the impacts of the transportation technologies they're deploying with that kind of subtlety. And so that's where I think the sort of civil designer comes in my view. Design typically integrates technology and humanities, and they just don't have people in the humanities places. Most of the awards that you see, there are millions of dollars to do pilots of new technology in cities. All the languages are around, okay, how much money you're going to spend, and you get like a budget for so many engineers, so many project managers, and there's no designers. There's no line items for designers. No one in humanities is involved in these things at all, if you read the government awards. And these are huge amounts of money, and they're going to change all of our lives in the next 20 years. So to me, this is a really big deal, and an opportunity as well for my program. Lastly, local intelligence at a micro level. That's like neighborhoods and stuff like that. So this is a map that I call like CivTech, GovTech as a sweet spot for really creating change. So the story here is the Post-its in black are about 2/3 of the students who graduated from my program. This is where they work. This is their name, and there's private entrepreneurial kind of companies, and there's nonprofits that are public, and then vertically you have kinds of systems, hard infrastructure, vehicles and devices, mobility services, and then really digital software as a service. So it gets very fluid towards the top. And you know, in the public space, we have students working there right now at metro transit authorities and research institute and stuff. And in the private space, you know, there's these startups that are sucking up some of the students. But I think what I'm seeing is cities actually need to work with these startups, okay? Because cities don't design buses, they don't design anything. They never will, and they can't. So they kind of have project managers inside their organizations, and budget controllers, kind of, and they're mostly engineers. But I think there's this sort of civil mobility, CivTech, GovTech space in the middle I'm trying to characterize right now. I think if we can teach our students the skills to work here with cities and with entrepreneurial approaches like lean UX, lean startup approaches, that's exactly what's going to get us there quickly in an agile way. And we have a sort of qualitative and quantitative metrics and outcomes. And that's kind of what we teach at the school. And I want to continue doing that and really get more focused on that space. This is a picture from a project we called The Future of the Bus in 2019 with LA Metro. This is the planning management master schedule. This is 2070. Yeah. I mean, literally Metro is planning projects all the way out there, right? And they have budget and line items on all these things. And so one of the big gaps that I think we're trying to fill is they've got all this money and these plans, and engineering's running it, and finance is running it. But what we do is we go out and actually, we go walk the streets with people. We did some research for that project where we just went out to places where buses were in LA, where we knew there were kind of some issues. And we were just out there doing research, and an elderly lady got off the bus, she just grabbed my arm and said, "Will you take me to my doctor?" And she couldn't even see me. And she was riding the system, and people were just helping her get along her way. And she had a Post-it note, and she just showed it to me, "This is where I need to go." And so everyone in the system, she showed the Post-it note, and they took her to the next stop. And when she got off, she literally saw me and grabbed my arm and said, "Can you take me the rest of the way? I'm told it's just a walk down the street." And so I just basically walked her to her doctor's office. It was crazy. But as like, you know, warm and fuzzy as that sounds, the system's really, really hard to use. But we have to understand how people really use the system, what it feels like firsthand, so that these guys know whether these plans are really the right plans or not. And that gap is really a big part of what our students are doing in ArtCenter. This is some stuff I've done at big companies. This ethnographic research that informs design strategy. This is for Ford trucks. Basically, I went and lived with Ford truck owners in Colorado and Texas for about a month with a team of PhDs in anthropology. I learned a lot about ethnographic research. I learned a lot about fried food and guns and ammo. So basically, F-150 is just a gun rack on wheels. And this is for luxury. So Lincoln wants to be a global luxury brand, and so we went to London and we went to Purdy Shotguns, where you can buy a couple of guns for $1.5 million, or pounds, I think. And they're made for you. They fit your body. You have to go back twice to get them fit. Of course, they don't eat fried food. It's much more. And you can buy a suit for about $20,000, which is just handmade for you at Huntsman. So I've been in there. It's understanding luxury is really an important thing. But to do it yourself, you go shop for a suit that costs $20,000. It's going to be made for your body and be served in this way. It's just to get the feeling of what it's like to be treated that way. There's nothing like it. It's pretty addictive, actually. I miss it now that I'm a teacher. But this is how you sort of, I think, really do this first-hand qualitative research. Okay. For BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit, we tried to understand what it was like to ride the old BART train. Anybody ridden the BART train up in the Bay Area? Yeah. Right. We came out in 1972, designed by space or aircraft engineers and ex-military people, and every single train was a side-by-side love scene. Okay. And so everyone has to sit next to a stranger. And it's actually mostly a commuter train, so it's usually you're on there for 20 or 30 minutes. And so literally people are pretending to be asleep, and this is my picture from the research phase. And it's like an elevator ride. You just don't want to. You just want to create like a little bubble and be alone, you know, and relax a little bit. It's very uncomfortable. It takes energy to ride this train. It's socially violating some basic principles, which I'll get to. Which were, in Ajay's work. Remember the work on proxemics? This is violating the first rule of proxemics, which is you don't put strangers this close to each other. There's actually measurable distances you shouldn't violate if you study proxemics. You know, we designed a train for the local culture. We tried to capture some of that. That's not very important. We did outreach, so we had people actually vote on the train interiors, and they gave us feedback. They chose the middle one, actually, which is the one we hoped they were going to choose. This sort of co-creation approach is something that Bart really did a great job of. I think the chief marketing officer said in a 3-year period he actually spoke with 40,000 people who in these kind of outreach contexts. So we built full-on mock-ups out of wood and foam just to get people to try the train design, different versions of it. It was really fun. This I'm not going to get into too much. So this is where I'm going to land. You know, I think there's fragmentation, this macro architecture, because of sort of, we have very much like a startup economy that just, you know, that can capture a piece and sell a contract to a city, and then that city's locked into 12 different contracts for 20, 30 years, and all their different data streams, different formats and timestamps. They have no idea how to integrate all that, and they're very unaware of how the system's working for anyone. The metrics, and they don't have metrics that are really valid. It's mostly quantitative, if they have any at all. And they don't have really this local intelligence. They don't really know what it's like on the ground, you know. And so my kind of landing zone here to end it is, you know, are we going to export all this dysfunction to space, right? You've got these chest-beating billionaires, you know, launching things into space. It's not just countries anymore. When I was a kid, it was like, oh, the International Space Station, how wonderful, right? You know, maybe they had some interoperability standards that the Russians built to, and the Chinese built to, and the Americans built to, right? But now it just feels like it's pretty much a cowboy space now, you know, and they're all just coming up with their own standards. And if that's true, I think that's not good. I think we will be locked into their black box and their standards for who knows how long. You know, can we get civil designers integrated from day one in sort of a cross-functional team to really, I think, integrate some of the more society-centered approaches that really are going to ensure, I think, a more civil world. And what if we don't, right? So that's it. That's the show. Thank you very much.